Welcome to Death and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm MK,
And I'm Courtney.
and how are you, Courtney?
You know, I'm fine. I don't know. It's been kind of a long day, but it's been a good day. Um, Last year, around this time, um, we had a wine challenge at the bar. I think I talked about this last week. But we had to sell rosé or whatever, the founder's rosé, donate to charity, all this stuff, yada yada. And turns out we won. So we got to have a tour and a wine tasting today at City Winery,
Fantastic.
which I knew a lot about, but not enough about, I guess. They also are very eco-friendly.
Cool.
They're working on like reusing bottles and kegs and stuff. Very good. And I surprisingly like their white wines better than their red, which is new for me.
That is new for you.
I know, it's wild. But yeah, so I'm doing well. How are you?
I, you know,
Hmm.
Today was the first day back to school from February break.
Hmm.
Um, I was really, really dreading it. Um, and it was honestly fine. Like
Good.
it was fine. Nobody extra pissed me off. Everybody did their work. Everybody was like good, like happy, and nobody was like super weirdly clingy and annoying either.
Oh, always great.
So it was not bad.
Hmm.
The weather then decided to say fuck you. And there was a whiteout just
Yeah.
in time for me to drive home. And so it takes 22 minutes from one door to the next, like work and school. The most I've ever had was 25.
Hmm.
My GPS said 27. I got home 37 minutes after I left.
Yeah. That's not great.
And yet somehow no school has closed for tomorrow. Like the number of times that schools have closed and when there
And
wasn't even
nothing's
and
happened.
there wasn't even snow on the ground.
Yeah.
And today it was like quite literally you couldn't see 5 feet in front of you, but like fuck it, it'll be fine tomorrow.
Well, maybe we'll be. We'll see.
We shall see.
Mm.
You know what else we can see about
What is that?
how to be more spiritual people? This is like the shortest pre-intro episode we've ever done, but
We are
as
so
y'all
tired.
we're both so tired, and as y'all know, we filmed 2 episodes literally 2 days ago. So like what else is there to talk about?
What else is new? Nothing.
Nothing.
But our spirituality. So start getting into a mindset where you expect something unexpected to happen, like a sudden shift, an out of the blue miracle, a possibility of an instant breakthrough. Let yourself loosen up about how things will happen. Trust more, believe more, be open to receiving.
I love that. And that also just like fits my life right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it's good.
it's very good.
Hmm.
You know what else was actually very good?
What is
Um,
that?
I personally, I think this episode of Stargate SGM was actually pretty good. It was a little
I
weird,
was a little concerned starting out, I will say,
correct?
but then it ended up really well. So yes.
Um, I sorry, I like while you were reading the spirituality, I like inhaled my hot chocolate and then tried to like pretend that I hadn't done that, but then I had
Right.
to keep talking and my throat was like,
And then it was
man,
too late.
my throat was like, man, what do you
Yeah.
think you're doing? Um, I was a little concerned at parts of this episode, but then I also remembered that it's from the 90s, and we have just very recently on this podcast discussed the concept that TV shows have a very hard time leaving children in a bad spot.
Yes, correct.
So I knew they were going to have to do something because
Hmm.
children.
We're in a bad spot. Yeah.
Yeah. It's the one thing that's like consistent in American television is almost never like, and there are exceptions, obviously, but
Right.
like very, very rarely, unless it is like a huge traumatic thing in a drama that like is then going to affect the characters for like the rest of the show,
Right.
children don't get hurt. But like that's
About the only time, yeah. It's
yeah,
like it has to be horror and have a reason.
right. Or it has to be like serious, serious drama and have a reason,
Mhm.
or it happens before you meet the characters. Like you like
Right.
characters will show up who like lost a sibling or lost a
Hmm.
child or like and that will exist, but you don't
Yeah.
see it. You don't get to know the characters first. I'm trying to think of like any show ever, like any show that I've ever seen where like a kid, because like
There's plenty where like humans die in the beginning.
yeah. But like, I mean, like I think about in Grey's Anatomy, a huge part of Amelia's character is that
Mhm.
her first baby died.
Right.
And actually, do they show that on Private Practice when she had
Mm,
the baby and it didn't survive? I think they showed that.
I think so. It's been so long since I watched it, but I think they do, but you still don't like see the baby
Right,
or you just see the
right.
process.
Yeah. And it's not like it's a kid that you've like
No, and are like familiar
gotten
with.
to know and get, yeah, and
Right.
get a relationship with. But so like, but obviously like Christopher died so long ago that I don't even remember, and it was like a major point of last week's Grey's Anatomy episode. So like, there was a purpose for her to have this baggage, like you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Also,
I don't.
that's a hard show because it's a medical show, so a lot of people die that like you don't want to die.
But it's still not children usually. Even so.
Occasionally, there have been some kids that have died, but
Yeah,
like,
but not in the beginning. It's not how they started. It's like
right,
way far in.
yeah. Anyway, now that we've just like told you half the plot of the episode, Stargate SG-1, season 3, episode 5. It is called Learning Curve. It was rated 7.7 stars, which is about the midway for anything this season. It's kind of
Which
like right in the middle,
is fine.
which is fair because I think it was a good episode, but also we just had 4 episodes that kind of all focused on gold plot things, and then this one was our just kidding episode.
Right.
So,
Really shook
um,
things up a bit.
yes, it came out on July 22nd, 1999. And the summer of 99 was a very volatile time for the box office. Like, like if you look at a day-to-day calendar of the box office in July of 1999, I think a different movie was number one every day.
Wild. I feel
Like
like we kind
there,
of talked about this recently. Was there one of the films we talked about this on?
yeah, Blair Witch Project was
Blair
that
Witch?
summer.
Okay.
Yeah, because like I think like 2 or 3 Stargate episodes ago, the number one movie was American Pie, and it's
Right.
back to being the number one movie. But there have been 2 movies in between
Interesting.
that.
Yeah.
But then also that was not the number one movie if you look at the weekend, because this was the 22nd was like a Friday, but like the Sunday report of the end of the week, it's a different movie.
That's wild.
Yeah. Speaking of wild, the number one song is Wild Wild West by Will Smith. Um,
Good.
which
Good.
that movie was the number one movie like a month ago, but the song
Right.
has now finally become the number one song.
Good for them.
It's it's a weird summer. But don't worry because the number one book is still the same. Hannibal by Thomas Harris. It'll be with us for a while.
For the rest of our
Um,
lives.
there were some weird things that happened this day that make me feel old.
Oh,
Um,
good.
well, only one of them makes me feel like truly old. The first one is that this was the first day of the Woodstock 99 festival.
I mean, yeah, it
Um,
was 99.
Woodstock 99 also ended early because despite being a festival full of hippies loving music, there was massive amounts of violence that canceled the rest of the festival.
Yep. Yep, sure enough.
So that just makes me feel sad for irony everywhere.
Right.
Um, this also was the day that Mohammed VI became the king of Morocco. He is still the king of Morocco.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
you know, that's the thing, I guess.
Hang in there.
And the thing that makes me feel the oldest of all things, this day was the initial release of the very first version of the MSN Messenger.
No. No. I'm sorry, I cannot accept that.
Like pre-AIM.
Oh God. Ugh, I'm elderly.
Right.
No. Okay, fine. Fine.
Yeah, like I distinctly remember the summer existing, and it was before MSN Messenger existed. So there, yeah.
Those were days.
Those were days I was 7 and carefree.
Good day. No worries in the world.
Not a one, not a single one.
Goodness gracious.
Yeah. It was directed by Martin Wood, so that's a returning. It does have a new writer though.
Okay.
Um, It was written by a woman named Heather Ashe. She is known for Stargate and a episode of a TV show called Glory Days. That is all of her film credits.
Oh, okay.
But she is not done writing. She writes books and like short stories, particularly mysteries, and she teaches
Oh,
writing classes. And she is the president of the Mystery Writers of America Midwest chapter in Illinois.
oh, I'm familiar with them. Not specific to Illinois, but like
Yes.
the chapter.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
she's the president of the Midwest chapter of the
Oh, good for
Mystery
her.
Writers of America. So
Did you write
yeah,
down what any of her books are?
I did not because the thing that I was reading was like all the stuff that I could find was actually the descriptions of like who she is as a teacher, and so it just wrote
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
writes has written. She did write a short story that was like one of the like in some publication of like the best mystery short stories of in America in 2013 or something.
Mhm.
But even when giving that like credit, it didn't give me the name of the story. And I
Yeah.
could have dug deeper, but I didn't want to. I'm gonna be
Totally
real
fine.
honest.
Totally fine.
um, it was edited by a man named Rick Martin, who is in fact not Ricky Martin.
Okay.
I only made that note because the number one song in America on this day was Wild Wild
Ah,
West, but the number one song in the UK was
okay.
Livin' La Vida Loca.
Yeah. Yeah. Fair.
So, so
Great
I had
distinction.
literally just read Ricky Martin's name and I was like, not the same person. He was known for mostly Stargate, but he also was the main editor on Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey.
I love that movie.
Yeah, I think it's the second one.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so good. But he was the editor on that. Which like props to you. You edited a movie where there was dialogue nonstop and yet none of the actors are talking.
Right, right. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Um, his recent credits include basically every Hallmark movie made in the last 10 years. So,
Yeah.
our guest star, I just like went with who was the highest credited on the episode, and then about halfway through the episode, I really wished that I would have not done that. Um,
Okay.
because the guest star that I'm talking about is who played Kaylin,
Yeah.
and I really would have rather looked up the little girl who played
Aaron.
Marin.
Mm-hmm.
I could just look her up now, but too
We're
much
here
work.
already.
Yeah. But It's because the guest star who played Kalen is named Andrew Arley. He is a Canadian Scottish born, or he's a Scottish born Canadian actor who's most well known for a show called The Romeo Section, which I had never heard of.
No.
But he's also very, very well known for playing the father of Christian Grey in the 50 Shades movies.
Okay, interesting.
He was also in every show that you and I watch. Um, he was in,
Everyone.
he had recurring roles in Smallville, Fringe, X-Files, and Nancy Drew.
Who was he in Nancy Drew?
I meant
Is
to
he
write that,
the is he the
I meant to write it down so that I could tell you because I knew you would
I don't I don't
need
want
to
to
know.
spoiler alert, but I think I know who he is.
Um,
What's his name?
Andrew Arlie or Airlie, maybe it's Airlie. Um, in Nancy Drew,
Oh, he's
we
not who I thought he was.
oh, who is he? Oh,
Andrew Early?
yeah.
Okay.
Also,
He plays Everett Hudson.
great. He also was in season 2, episode 6 of Bates Motel as the mayor.
All right.
Um, that episode is the episode where Norma gets appointed to the council.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he's the
Season
mayor.
2?
Season 2. That was season 2. I know.
Oh
That's
God.
that's the episode where Cody and Norman get Emma to jump in the waterfall.
That does not feel like season 2.
Yeah.
That
First of
feels like
all,
into season 3.
yeah, nope, that was middle of season 2, and the mayor in that episode
Was Andrew Early.
was also Kalen, the weird alien man.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
which no, because he was not a guest star that we talked about in that episode, but
No, he wasn't.
yeah. Um, so yeah, that's our weird everything in this world's connected.
Yeah.
Mostly in our world, really, not
Right.
necessarily in the whole world, but we start in a room that looks exactly, sorry, like the gate room, but also like we're in the middle of a pyramid, and I was hella confused.
Hmm.
Um, and
I just
Daniel
put,
is
where did this come from? Like, where
right.
are we?
Mike, it just says we start in what looks like the gate room, but is also definitely a pyramid question mark.
Yeah, correct.
Daniel is helping a bunch of children do hard labor.
Hmm.
Um, and then the gate activates and the kids all get scared, and Daniel's like, "Don't worry, it's just my friends." And it was.
This shot, though, was the worst shot of TV I've ever seen. He's like talking about how like small they are, and then they come in and they're like physically smaller, but then he just like runs down the stairs and they're not. And I was like, what is happening? Like,
Yeah.
it was such a weird scene, and I didn't like the way it was shot. I was like, this makes no sense.
Um, um, so then Jack and Teal come back through the gate and they're talking about an exchange that they're about to do. So like clearly we're coming very much into the middle of a story.
Right.
Um, and my note says a leader from the people who have the Aztec artifacts because they said the name of the planet, but at that point I had totally missed it.
Right.
And Daniel was geeking out about some Aztec warrior bracelet.
Sure.
So I was like, cool, this is who they are.
This is who they are now, yeah.
Uh, and so they're excited to exchange knowledge. So Kalen, who again, I only knew his name because I wrote the guest star info,
Right.
is bringing a Naquita power reactor, and Teal'c is teaching them about the Goa'uld, and that is the exchange that is happening. which
Hmm.
I think is a decently fair exchange there.
Seems so.
Then we go back to SGC because I mean at this point we still don't have a fucking idea what's going on, but it's fine. Go back to SGC, and Sam is telling Hammond about the people, and they're like incredibly quick advancing. Like they're not like they're technology in some ways is advanced way past Earth, but also like in some ways hasn't. But
Right.
the thing that's like fascinating about them is how short a period of time their advancement has taken.
Right.
And so then Kalen comes through the gate and he gives Sam the Naquator reactor and is like, you can have this for the length of time that our exchange is going to study it. And then he's like, okay, our exchange is done. Goodbye.
Yeah.
And Sam's like, whoa,
She's like,
I
what
need
do I
someone,
do with this?
I need someone to like teach me how to use this. And he's like, well, I
Yeah.
don't know how. But Marin, the little kid, just goes, oh, I'll teach you.
Hmm.
And then we have the credits.
Yeah.
Very confusing.
It was. It was. I didn't know what we were getting into at this point.
I also, I couldn't decide for like a good half of the episode if I thought there was like any malevolent motivation happening. Like I genuinely
Okay, yeah,
could
me too.
not. I was like everything about these people is so gray. I do not know.
Right. I was like, are they like the Tok'ra? Like they're the good people that are helping? Or do they have some kind of like ulterior motive that we're just not seeing yet?
Yeah. Yeah. But so then after the credits, we have the team telling Marin that like they're going to show her to the lab, but like first they have to take her to the infirmary, and she's like, "Yeah, duh. Like you have to check newcomers for pathogens. Like that just makes sense.
Right.
It's totally fine."
She's so chill about everything.
And then they're like, "How old are you?" And she's like, "I'm 11. How old are you?" Yeah. Um, I mean,
So mad at that.
I might have been that sassy when I was 11, but like not that smart.
Mm. See, I wouldn't have been sassy about it, but if somebody asked me how old I was, I would absolutely like ask them how old they were too. But it wouldn't be like from a sassy point of view. I'd be like, oh, I'm 11. How old are you? And they'd be like, no, we don't do that.
We don't know. I don't know. I feel, is that a weird thing? Like when I was a kid, I felt like it was so rude to ask adults how old they were.
Well, that's what we were taught when we were kids was how rude it
Right.
was. But
But
it's
like,
like,
but as an adult, I have never, when one of my students like asks me how old I am, I have never felt any weirdness about telling them how old I actually am. Like
yeah,
that doesn't, it's a very odd concept to me. Because
yeah,
I
no,
do remember like it wasn't like I just like woke up one day and was like, oh, that's rude. Like I was taught like you never ask an adult how old they are.
right. No, I absolutely was also taught that. But I agree. I never feel that way. I'm like, oh, okay, this is
Maybe
how,
that's part of the whole like millennial inability to be adult thing. Like we don't think of we're like fuck it, we're not grown ups. We're
we're not
just
adults
four
yet.
like we're 40. We're just not
Right.
adults. Like
Exactly. That's not how that works.
um but so then we go back to
We're gone.
Orban. It's one of those things where not everyone on the show pronounces it the same
Yeah.
way, so I don't know how to pronounce it. Like I was reading a Reddit post that was like getting very angry about the fact that Teal'c, Jack, Daniel, and Hammond all have very different ways of pronouncing gold.
Yeah, they do. I notice that every episode.
Yeah.
I'm like, which way
Uh,
are we gonna say it today?
um, but back on Orban, Daniel's like geeking out about like the ground. And when Kalen comes in and he brings his son and he's who is also Urone or Uron or I don't know. I read the captions and then I think I know how to pronounce
You,
the
Ronnie?
words. Yeah, sure. I listen, I do. I also read the captions, and I'm still never like 100% sure what they're trying to say.
I think it was Euron or Euroni, is how they said it.
That sounds correct. Um, and then he brings his son out, and he's like, Teal will teach you all of the things about the Goa'uld, which is when I was like, what the fuck is wrong with these people?
Right.
And then Daniel's like, hey, where's that kid who was helping me yesterday? And Killen is like, oh no, she was past due for her ovarium.
Right.
And here we come to the part of the episode where I wanted to throat punch Daniel Jackson. Okay, because sorry, this
I'm
is
getting
so.
curious.
I'm getting serious. I'm getting a microphone to my face serious. What is Daniel Jackson's actual job? Not the 400 million things that are his job, but what is his job?
No, he's what, a linguist? Is that the
A
one description?
linguist. He's a linguist. He's a linguist who is fluent in ancient Greek and Latin. And
Right.
you are going to tell me that the root of that word being ova didn't mean something to you. Like, are you fucking dumb?
I mean, when I heard it, I was like, oh, I get it. This means something. Like I feel it.
Right.
And Daniel Jackson has like no relation to it.
No, no. An ovary
Right.
is like an ovulating and like that and like when
Like
you're talking
egg.
about
Oh wow.
right like and when you're talking about like plants and insects, the ova is the new stage before the pupa, like literally it's the coming about of a new life. I teach fifth grade English. He goes, oh, is that kind of like a graduation ceremony? And Kalen's like, sort of. And that was also when I decided that Kalen was a little bit sketchy about it.
Right.
I was
Right.
like, I don't trust you. Um, but yeah, sorry, that was my soapbox moment for once again, what is Daniel Jackson's purpose? Um,
Bless his heart.
but then he like Kalen like remedies the situation by being like, oh, you wanted to see the pyramids of the sun in the daylight. Let's go. And Daniel's such a fucking twit that he forgets that he is confused by languages and runs away to see pyramids.
Right. Right.
I wish so much that I didn't realize I was describing my boyfriend because
Aw,
I
poor man.
cannot for a second imagine him not being distracted from the real question and running to go see the pyramids.
Well, it is what it is.
I don't, if you did listen to this podcast, I don't think you're a twit, babe. I didn't mean it like that. Um, anyway, Teal'c cracks me up in this moment
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
because the way he asks Tommen what is happening is literally not a question you should ask another human being. He just goes, what is your purpose? Like, is he a toy? Is he a cleaning solution? Like, what is your purpose?
Look, look. I mean,
Listen,
being a Jaffa,
listen,
that's not good.
pastors ask you that, like teachers ask you that. No one else can ask you that without it feeling very much like a you don't think I deserve to be alive.
Right, right. Which, like, to be fair, might be what Toke's saying. We don't know, but not super nice if so.
And then Tommen, in the cutest but also most weird roundabout way, tells Teal'c he's afraid of him. Like he's like, I now understand why why Goa'uld are so feared. And he's
Yeah.
like shaking a little bit, and I'm like, oh, poor baby.
Yeah.
And then we leave them to their conversation, and we go
Mhm.
back to SGC, where Janet is finishing up Marin's exams, and they're like talking and about how smart she is, and she like can't understand the concept of learning like at all. She's like, "What do you mean? Like I was always that like you were not always this smart, like this smart." And they were like, "No, like we go to school to get this smart." And but then she realizes it's the best moment. She realizes they're talking about how she's a scientist, and
Yeah.
she realizes that Sam's a scientist and Janet's a scientist and Jack is not a scientist. And she's like, so they're smarter than you.
Mhm. And he's like, well, in some ways, and this done. He goes, ah, yeah, yeah.
He's
Like,
like, whatever. Like, I'm not even going to argue. No, yes. He goes,
what?
but while they were stuck in school, I was off having fun. And she was like, what's fun?
Right.
I ask myself that question on a daily basis, but not because I never learned what fun is, but because I don't have time to remember.
Ugh, I feel that.
Um, then we go back to Orban, and Teal'c is teaching Tommen about how like Goa'uld work and how a symbiote works. And then after seeing the pyramids, Daniel like has absolutely lost his mind. He is completely sure that the people of Urban are please forgive my whiteness in this moment, everyone. Because I know the word that he said. I know the culture he said. I can't fucking pronounce that word to save my life. Tech Tecachoan? I don't the
Hackathon?
tech yeah, sure. The Tecacoan, is that the people's?
Is that it?
Sounds better than what the fuck I was just trying to say. Basically, they are a native tribe that actually predates the Aztec people, and they started like that's a real thing. And there is a lot of uh anthropological information that they may have been the tribe that actually built
Yeah.
like the pyramids that the Aztecs then like uh conquered them and wiped them out. And in the Stargate world, the Goa'uld were the Aztecs that conquered and wiped them out, uh, which checks out with how they do this universe. Um, And so he's trying to explain, like Daniel's trying to explain the Tekaconn people to and the Aztecs to Kalen, and he's like, "Okay, tell Tommen." Sure.
No.
Okay. I guess I will explain this thing to a small child instead of you.
Right.
Um, and then we go back to SJC again, and Marin is explaining the reactor to Sam, and who's just like very confused.
Hmm.
Because Marin is explaining it about the exact same way the manual in Japanese would explain it, really. Um,
Yes.
and so Sam's like trying to break things down and like even further and like ask Marin like very point specific questions instead of like her just spieling. And then Janet comes back and is like, we just need to see Marin again, just like a couple follow-up tests. And
But
that's when
she's
you're
like,
like,
this, like eye contact with Sam, like, this has to happen.
like something is wrong. And you
Right.
just, but we also just watched Kaylin being like, don't talk to me, talk to the child. And you're like,
Yep,
yeah,
something's
no,
wrong.
something is wrong.
Right.
But then, so Janet explains to Sam, Jack, and I wrote George again, that there are millions of nanites in Marin's brain.
which we haven't seen since like the beginning of the first season.
Right. The nanites, what episode was that?
Maybe like mid first season. It was really early on.
It was, oh, was who? No, but what they were talking about, um, what the nanites did.
It oh, that was that the caveman episode?
Was it the caveman episode?
Maybe. I remember it being like the first episode. We were like, everything's kind of been like wonky, but this is the first one that really feels sci-fi.
Yeah, maybe. But yeah, it was something where like it no, it yes, it was the episode where Jack ate the marriage cake and then aged 150 like thousand years
Yes.
at once.
Yes. It was the aging episode. That's right. They did talk about that.
Because they talked about it like aging people. And Marin is just like again, way too chill. She's just like, yeah, no, we created the nanites. They make us smarter and like we all have them, but like our own children have the most, and then they like act as additional synapses and like nothing else. They don't age us any differently, and they can't like leave our body, and they're
Right.
programmed to like die in our bloodstream if they have any malfunction in our brain. Like we're cool,
Which is like pretty genius, but also like
but also
yeah, it's
fucking
terrifying.
terrifying.
Yeah. I also get how it's terrifying. Yeah.
But also, like, it's terrifying when you think about the fact that this is an 11-year-old who's like, oh, yeah, no, it's cool. My brain was programmed at birth. This is just how things are. And,
Right.
and also the fact that it's like, oh, there are some of us that get picked to be these special fucking like brain monsters.
Yeah.
That is
Rough.
concerning,
Mhm.
but also like, I get confused for like just how many children don't get these and how many children do.
Yeah. I don't really understand how that works. Like, what's the discrepancy between like, is it 50%? Get them 50% don't? Is it like this one's born and today we decide they're getting the nanites? Like,
I don't know.
yeah,
I would I would not want to be on that picking committee.
absolutely not.
Um so then we go back to Urban, and Tommen tells Kaylin that he wishes to go to his ovarium early because he thinks that the knowledge that he has about the Goa'uld is too important to wait 6 months to be given to other people.
Hmm.
And that we still don't really know what the fuck it is.
Right.
So that's very confusing. And also, like, Tommen looks terrified, and Kaylin is like, I've never been more proud of you. And I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's a very
I
confusing
honestly feel like this
situation.
is a cult.
Oh, it does. It does feel very culty.
Um, then we go back to the SGC, and Sam asks Marin to draw a picture of the reactor core. And she's like, I don't know how to draw. That's not something I do. And Sam's like, well, it's really easy. Which, okay.
And she's like, everyone draws. And I was like, I don't think you've played Pictionary with me, but like, it's not, it's not great. Like everyone can physically put a pencil to a paper, but not
I
everyone can like draw a picture.
Right. And I think everyone draws. I think that's true in the sense that like I've never met someone who didn't mindlessly scribble something.
Yeah,
Like everyone draws, it's just a thing that we do.
right.
Like even kids in the dirt with sticks will like draw
Sure.
pictures. And I do appreciate that Sam wasn't like, oh, it's cool, everyone draws, and then like draw a work of art. She drew the shittiest stick
Yes.
figure.
Yeah, I saw her stick figure and I was like, okay, maybe everyone does draw because I can do that.
Um, I also as like that's a thing that I really hate though, because like as a teacher, when I'm like, okay, so like on this part you're gonna draw a picture, and they're like, my kids tell me all the time, they're like, I don't know how to draw. I'm like, I didn't say it had to be a good picture. I just had to
Right.
draw. And so like I get so acutely the being like, I don't know how to do that because I
Yeah.
hear it every day. But Sam's like, no, no, like I don't need something that I could like use to rebuild it. I just need something to like understand what the part that I can't see.
Right.
Like she doesn't really want a picture more. She wants a
An
diagram,
idea, yeah.
an idea. And after Marin sees Sam's shitty stick figure, she's like, "Oh, like maybe I can draw, but I need bigger paper." And I was like, "Oh God." Um, and then we go back to Iran, and Daniel finds a carving that like proves that the Goa'uld have been there before. And Kalen comes in, and he has Solon with them, and he's like, "Okay, Teal'c, teach him all about weapons and fighting." And Teal'c's like, "No, where's Tommen?"
Yeah.
And Kalen's like, "Oh, you don't understand. Like he's gone. He went to Zovarium." And Daniel's like, "Well, Teal'c and Tommen already have a relationship. Like it would be a lot easier. He wouldn't have to explain like other things." And he's like, "No, no, it's okay. We all have Tommen." And
Until it's
Teal'c's,
like,
Teal'c's like,
where?
"Where the fuck is the child?"
Yeah.
Um,
Fair question.
right. And then we flip back to SJC, and Jack walks in on Marin like climbing a shelf for paper, and Sam is asleep, and Jack's like, "You're gonna get hurt." She's like, "But I need more paper."
Yeah. He's like, why didn't you just ask? Oh,
Yeah. And it turns out that like Marin already drew like a fuck ton of random cross sections of this machine, and she's like trying to draw it from every angle of every layer of everything. And Sam's like, "No, this is amazing. I'm just gonna use your drawings and 3D print that shit."
right.
Um, and Jack's like, "It's late. Like everybody needs sleep. Like let's go to bed." And she's like, "Oh no, our own children don't sleep." I was like, "The fuck?"
Which is even creepier. Like,
Right. Um, so she's gonna keep drawing. But then we go back to where shit got real fucked up in this episode because Teal'c and Kalen and Daniel are with Tommen, who has no idea who they are because he doesn't have a brain anymore.
yeah.
Um, and Teal'c's like, "You now is the time where you stop vaguely using words that we don't know what they mean, and you tell us what is happening here." So Kalen does, because unlike what I felt previously, what they're doing is probably very wrong,
Right.
but it is absolutely not malevolent in any way.
No, yeah.
So he like very freely explains how this process works. And basically, certain children are picked at birth to be the Uron, and they are given like a extra bajillion dose of nanite, and then they spend 12 years focusing on a very specific like area of knowledge to like study and learn and understand. And then when
Yeah.
they turn 12, their nanites are actually physically removed from their brain and injected into like one apiece to all of the like
Yeah.
people in the entire uh like community,
Yeah.
so that their learned knowledge can be shared with the people who can then continue the research without having to be as like insanely focused. The
They're
problem
not like
is,
murdered, which I thought is what happened.
right. The problem is that like you almost wish they were murdered
Yeah.
because the their brains like no longer function at all. They now will reject any nanites. Like they've tried giving them new nanites after that and
Hmm.
it like rejects. They don't work. And so like Daniel's like, well, like why don't you then teach them like the old fashioned way? Like just give them information and help their natural synapses like refire. And Kalen does not understand what like
No.
non-nanite learning is. He's like, I don't, what is teaching? Like what is learning? How do you, he's like,
Yeah.
we take care of them. It's basically like a invalid infirmary
Yeah.
for these poor 12-year-old children who've never done anything wrong in their lives. Um, so Teal'c returns to the SGC and tells them what the ovarium is, and Jack freaks the fuck out.
Yep, sure does. Sure does.
Because we know that Sam is the one who always has a weird connection to children who no one loves, but Jack is going to protect a kid over anything.
Yes.
Um, and so they decide on taking the diplomatic route and trying to talk Kalen out of this. But when Teal'c and Jackson talk to Kalen, he loses his ever-loving mind and demands that they return Marin immediately.
Hmm.
Back
Yeah.
at the SGC, Marin, on the other hand, explains to Jack and Sam that, like, she does not feel bad and the ovarium is important and she has to go and that's her duty to her people to share her knowledge.
Yeah. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. You can't just automatically change people's cultures without understanding where they're coming from. What? What is this?
Oh,
So, yeah. I feel like that had a big comment on society in that moment. But it's fine. It's fine.
yeah, but then, like, they do.
Yeah, yeah.
Kind
Like,
of.
yeah, kind of.
There's a compromise in there, sort of. Um, but Hammond is like, I will give you 48 hours to help Marin understand the gravity of what she's doing, but I will not protect a kid who, or protect a person who does not want protection.
Right. Which, like, fair.
Um, so then back at Irvine, Kalen's like, just fuck it. And he's going to go to Earth himself and retrieve Marin.
Yeah.
And Daniel's like, you can't do that because then the iris will not open and they'll kill you. And he's like, what is this iris? And he's like, well, it's this thing. And he's like, don't tell me, tell Solon. And Daniel's
Yeah.
like, fuck you. Like, I'm not talking to this child. I'm talking to you as an adult, as a leader. And they argue about ethics and they're like screaming at each other. And eventually Daniel just kind of goes like, oh, because they were not taking any of like what the purpose of this cultural thing into
Right.
consideration at all. And like there's the whole thing of like still not cool with it, but maybe we should just not pig-headedly tell people everything about their life is wrong.
Right. You have to like figure out what's going on first.
Right? Because like if you know the motivation, you can come up with a better solution that helps
Mhm.
everyone. But
Right.
if you're just trying to stop the outcome without understanding the motivation, all you're going to do is cause a different problem to occur.
Right.
And they're going to try to fix what you fixed in a different way that ends up hurting more people. And that's why nothing ever gets accomplished because nobody ever has conversations about the root cause. We all just want to point fingers at everything that's happening around us because it's everybody's problem and not
What? What is that? Oh,
weird.
correct.
Weird. Weird that a show from the 90s that's not political is telling us how to fix our fucking problems in 2023.
Hmm.
Weird.
Yeah.
Um, And then, but then Marin explains her why she needs to go back to like Sam again. She's like, I'm not brainwashed. I'm not dumb. this is my life's work. And it might not be what you guys think of as a life's work, but like this is why I do what I
Yeah.
do.
Like there's a reason for all of this.
And then Sam kind of just like tells her to shut up. Not really,
Right.
but she kind of does. So, because she's like talking out loud at Marin while she solves the problem and recreates the Naquita reactor core.
Hmm.
And then we get Jack's attempt to save the problem, fix the problem.
Yep.
And Jack takes Marin to play at a playground at Cassandra's old school.
Also, like, he acts like he's known these people for a million years. Like, we've had one episode where we've dealt with these people, right?
Yeah. But also apparently Cassandra's in junior high now,
Yeah.
which means that she's been around for like we haven't seen her, but it's been some time.
Right.
Um uh and she has no idea what to do. Like kids are like throwing balls at her and she's just kind of like staring at them. It's like very uncomfortable.
Yes.
Um I also feel like it's weirdly a comment on autism, like the whole
Okay.
episode.
Yeah.
And like because like that single-minded like brilliance and like the
Yeah.
complete inability to like understand why other people learn the way they
Like
do.
social cues and such. Yeah.
Mhm. It was fascinating.
That's fair. Yeah.
Um, so then she goes to art class and they tell her to draw something she loves. And before I get to what she draws, I want to ask about the child who weirdly drew Jack.
See, this is my thing. Like, as far as we know, they've
Does
seen him one time.
does Jack, when he's not at work, does he just go and hang out with kids?
I think so. Like, that seems
Like
like,
he misses Charlie, so he volunteers at like
yeah,
day schools.
that's what it seems like.
Because that's very much what it felt like.
And like, that's fine if it is, but like, we don't know that in this episode.
There, yeah, there's some weird stuff happening there.
Yeah.
That was not the weird stuff that the episode was actually trying to make happen, but it was also weird.
Mhm.
Um, and so she starts to draw the reactor, and Jack just like rips it up and tells her to try again.
Yeah,
And he's like, draw something that's not a machine. And
but bigger.
she like blankly stares at him, and he's like, "What about the flowers that were on Major Carter's desk? You really like those? Like, try the flower." And then she gets like mad because she can't do it accurately because she doesn't have a purple paint, and he's like, "It doesn't have to be accurate. It
And
doesn't
she's like,
have to be
if I just
perfect."
had red and blue, I could even mix them.
And he just like
Just,
they're like yelling at each other,
yeah.
and he's like, "Draw it bigger. Draw it not perfect. Draw a whole forest." So she does. She draws like an entire page of flowers and trees. And in the corner is a stick figure of Sam.
Oh, it's so cute.
So cute. And then they have a moment where she thanks Jack for teaching her and tells him that she appreciates it, but she needs him to understand that she still has to do this thing.
Right, right.
It's very sad.
It is.
So the back at base, we're getting ready to send Marin back through the gate, and they Jack shows up, and Hammond starts to get mad, and Jack's like, "I'm not here to interfere. Like, it's fine. I know she has to do what she has to do." But he gives her a box of crayons, and like, I almost cried.
I know. She's like, oh my gosh, they're so pretty. It's like, ugh, they are. Ugh.
And then we get to the moment where like I did start to tear up a little bit because Sam takes Mary to the gate room and Hammond tells Jack that he has more than enough information to court martial him. And Jack just looks him dead in the face and was like, today I taught that little girl how to be a kid. So if you want to punish me for that, do it.
Right. He's like, fine, this is fine.
Yeah.
Oh, so good.
And I think the reason that like it was good, but I think the reason that like it hit me so hard is because like that's how I feel about being a teacher sometimes. I'm like, I don't give a fuck about the lesson plans or the standards
Right.
or the curriculum. Like, I'm teaching these kids how to be people and how to know that somebody loves them. And if that means that I'm not doing my job, then fuck that my job. Like,
Sure. Yeah.
so I was like, oh, Jack. Of course, Hammond doesn't.
No, of course, of course.
Um, so then Marin thanks them and leaves with Kaylin. And then we have the weirdest cut that was clearly a time jump that was done not well.
Right.
But it turns out that Kaylin was radioed SGC and asked for the whole team to go to orbit and right away. And they're like, what's wrong? And Ham's like, you're going to have to go and find out.
Yeah, it took me too long to realize there was a time jump because it didn't go well.
No. It turns out the time jump was like a day,
Yeah.
but it didn't. It was the kind of thing where I was like, was this supposed to be 20 minutes or 20 years? Like, I don't fucking know.
Yeah.
You did nothing that helped me with that. Um, and they get there and like Kaylin's freaking out and they're like, what's wrong? What's wrong? He's like, no, 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 nothing's wrong, but you have to come here. And he takes them to the place where the Iran are, and they're all playing the playground games from the school.
Mhm.
And Kaylin has basically started a school for the Iran kids once their nanites are gone to like learn the old-fashioned way. And it's really sweet because these kids are like 12 and they're probably learning at like a pre-K level, but they're going to be able to learn things.
And she draws a red flower instead of purple because of Jack. Oh, it was so sweet.
And then Jack goes to like re-meet Marin and draw pictures with her.
And he tells her dogs are his favorite people. I was like, dogs are my favorite people too.
He goes, he was like, there aren't a lot of purple dogs, but it's okay. I like it that way.
Like, we'll just have to meet each other again. I was like, ah.
Yeah. So that is amazing and beautiful. And that's why even though it was a weird episode and it did not fit anything that we were doing so far, I'm perfectly okay with it being
An episode.
rated the way it is.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
Do you have any thoughts, theories, feedback?
Where on earth would I go from here? I did put at one point, I was like, if we don't have a future episode where the Orban is making beautiful art, I'll scream. And then it was like 5 seconds later, they were like drawing arts on the walls. I was like, okay, this is fine. But so then all of my predictions were gone after that. That was the end of that for me.
Okay.
So yeah, not a lot of predictions I could get behind. You have some
Yeah,
trivia for me?
I do have some trivia.
Great.
This is the first mention of the Naquita reactor, but it will not be the last. This is also the first episode that Heather Ashe was a writer and a story editor on. She writes a total of 5 episodes and is a story editor for 18. And this one is funny. Although it turned out all right in the end, Learning Curve is a prime example of why the Prime Directive was developed in Star Trek, because Stargate has several examples of major interference with the planet's culture.
Yep. Yep.
For those of you who don't know what the Prime Directive
I
is,
don't.
the Prime Directive is basically the idea that in the ships in Stargate, like the oh God, or not Stargate, Star Trek, the Starfleet, these like pilot, like the people who work for Starfleet, and they go to all these planets. Their prime directive, their number one rule is that they cannot interfere with or like meddle in what is happening on that planet in
Sure.
any way. Of course, like Captain Kirk fucks with the Prime Directive all the
Right.
time because like
Right.
that's what Star Trek is. But like the Prime Directive in the Star Trek universe is that like a culture is a culture is a culture, and you don't get to fucking have a say in that because it doesn't match your culture.
Right.
And but it's also funny because like that's the number one shit that goes wrong in sci-fi shows in general is that like
Every
does
time.
not matter what your goal was, you somehow still changed a culture.
Yeah. Yeah. For
And
better or for worse, it happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
And on that note, who would you like to punch?
You know, I think I'd like to punch Daniel. He was just kind of in the way this episode. Like, he couldn't seem to get it together. And I just,
No,
what about you?
that would have been my first pick.
Hmm.
Um, but I think, although it was from a place of caring, and I know it turned out all right in the end, and I know it will turn out all right for us in the end, I kind of want to punch Sam
Mm-hmm.
because she's usually not this obtuse,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
she was so focused on making sure the reactor core was like working that she just was like kind of ambivalent to quite literal child sacrifice,
Right. Right. Yeah.
which is like doesn't feel like her.
It doesn't. Correct.
And so I didn't love that.
Yeah. It's fair.
Um, I don't have to ask, but for the sake of the podcast, I will ask, who is your MVP?
So I know you think I'm gonna say Jack because, like, theoretically I should, but I'm gonna say Marin because
Very,
she's like
very valid choice. Not
she's
at all what I
so.
thought.
I know you thought I was gonna say Jack,
Yeah.
and I would have had I not said Marin because she's so like only for the good of others. Like
Valid.
everything she did, but she also like, and she's so young and she was so smart and so kind. And every time somebody was like, "Oh my God, this is terrible," she's like, "Hold on, let me explain why it's not, so you don't freak out." And she was just so analytical and like, bless her heart.
That is such a valid response. And it also makes me happy because it gives me the door to pick Jack
Pick Jack. Yeah,
because Jack
right.
was
Totally fair. Totally fair.
because Jack was me in this episode. And so like,
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely.
good choice. Good choice.
Well, and with that, there's not much left to say.
Tis not.
So uh you can follow us on all the social media at Death and Aliens or email us at deathandaliens@gmail.com. You can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
And you can follow me at CECloud13.
We will be back next week. Well, no, we'll be back on Thursday first, but then
First.
we'll be back next week to see if this episode has anything to do with the next
I'm sure it
episode.
doesn't. I'm sure it doesn't.
I think like I'm gonna make like paper chains for every and like build it for every time the episodes actually connect to each other
Oh yeah.
and see if I ever get past three.
Yes. Fair. Yeah.
See.
All right. So we'll
All
see you
right.
for that.
And we'll see you first for our Thriller Thursday, where we are Coming to the end of the line.
Eek.
Also, it's not today in recording world or in viewing world. It's today in recording world, but happy 1 year anniversary to our announcement of Stargate end
Yes,
dates.
I meant to post that on social media today and then I didn't.
It's all
Ah,
right. Yeah.
yes. Happy 1 year to us deciding
This
what we were
to
going to do.
this double week format.
Eek. Yes.
Ugh. Remember when we had one episode a week?
Remember when we didn't know what we were doing?
Do we still know
We
what we're
vaguely know
doing?
what we're doing.
Vaguely. All right. Talk to you guys on Thursday.
See
Bye.
ya.